Hey everyone, welcome. If you've ever peeked inside a computer case and just felt totally overwhelmed by all the wires and components, well, you are in the right place. Today, we are going to pull back the curtain on the entire process. We're going to follow a builder step by step as they turn a pile of parts into a powerful working PC. So let's dive right in. And let's just kick things off with this piece of advice because it's so true. The reality is, once you've picked out all your components, putting them together is kind of like building with high-tech Legos. The physical build itself, it's way more straightforward than you probably think, and we're going to see that together right now. All right, so first things first. Every good project, and I mean every project, begins with a little bit of prep. So our first act here is all about getting organized, setting up our space, and getting our tools ready to go. Trust me, this is the secret to a build that's smooth and totally stress-free.
And look at this. The first thing you'll probably notice is just how simple this tool list is. You really don't need a high-tech workshop. All you need is a big table, preferably in a room without carpet to avoid any static electricity mishaps, a couple of basic Phillips screwdrivers, some kind of light, like a flashlight to see into those dark corners of the case, and then some zip ties and scissors for that final cleanup. Seriously, that's it.
Okay, so the very first thing we're actually going to do is prep the case. We're taking off all the side and top panels, basically stripping it down. Why? Because this creates a wide open, super accessible workspace. It just gives us so much more room to work and makes getting all those components in there way, way easier. Now we get to the really fun part, the heart of the operation. We're going to assemble the core components. And here's a pro tip. It's so much easier to install the CPU, the storage, and the RAM onto the motherboard while it's out in the open before we even think about putting it inside the case. And the first piece of that core is the CPU. The central processing unit. I mean, it really is the brain of the whole show. Every single thing your computer does, from you moving the mouse to loading up a website to launching a massive game, all of it is an instruction that has to go through the CPU. Okay, this next part is all about being precise, but don't worry, it's not that hard. First, you pop open that metal lever to release the socket. Now look closely. See that tiny gold triangle on the corner of the CPU? You're just going to line that up with the matching triangle on the motherboard socket and gently, and I mean gently, place it in. Don't push, it should just drop right into place. Then you lower that lever back down. It's going to feel a little stiff, and that's okay. That's how you know the brain is locked in securely. Next up is our storage. And wow, this is a perfect example of how far PC parts have come. We're using a modern M2 SSD. It literally looks like a little stick of gum and it plugs right onto the motherboard. Not only is it incredibly fast, but it needs zero extra cables. For a first-time builder, this is a dream come true compared to older drives that needed separate power and data cables. And installing it, it's a total breeze. You can see our builder here just unscrews the little heatsink that covers the slot, peels off that protective plastic from the thermal pad, don't forget that part, and then just slides the drive in at a slight angle. After that, you just press it down flat, lock it in with a tiny clip or a screw, and pop the heatsink right back on. So simple, so fast, and absolutely no cables. All right, next up we have RAM, or random access memory. Now, the best way to think about this is like the computer's short-term memory. It's the workspace that holds all the information for the apps and programs you have open right now so the CPU can get to it in a flash. So to get it installed, you first open up the little clips on the RAM slots. Now, this is a really important tip. If you have 2 sticks of RAM, you almost always want to put them in the second and fourth slots away from the CPU. This turns on something called dual channel mode, which basically gives your CPU a wider highway to access that memory. It's a free performance boost. Just line up the notch on the stick with the one in the slot and push down firmly on both ends. You're listening for that really satisfying click when the clips lock it in. Improperly seated RAM is probably the #1 reason a new build won't start, so make sure you hear that click. And just like that, the core of our build is done. The motherboard has its brain, its storage, and its short-term memory all installed. So now it's time for the next huge milestone, moving this whole assembly into its brand new home, the PC case. But before we put the motherboard in, the case itself needs its power source. And that's this thing, the power supply unit, or PSU. Its entire job is to take the power from your wall outlet and convert it into the stable, clean power that all your expensive components need. Using a modular one like we are here means you only attach the cables you're actually going to use, which is a massive help later when we have to clean things up. So the PSU, this guy usually slots in at the bottom back of the case, and the key detail here is which way it's facing. You want to make sure that big fan is pointing down. That lets it pull in cool air from the vent on the bottom of the case to keep itself from overheating. A few screws and boom, it's in there. Now, before that motherboard goes anywhere, we have to talk about these little things right here, standoffs. They might not look like much, but they are absolutely critical. These are little posts that screw into the case and they hold the motherboard up and away from the metal. This prevents the thousands of tiny electrical connections on the back from touching the case and causing a catastrophic short circuit. So yeah, pretty important. All right, time to move in. With the case laying on its side, our builder is carefully lowering the motherboard into place. The goal is to line up all those ports on the back with the openings in that little metal plate, the I/O shield. Once it's resting on the standoffs, it's time to screw it in. And the trick here is to tighten them in a crisscross pattern, kind of like you would the lug nuts on a car tire. That just makes sure you applied even pressure all across the board. The main board is in place, which means we are officially in the home stretch. Whew! This act is all about installing that last major component, the one responsible for all the gorgeous visuals. And then we get to tackle the fine art of cable management. And here it is, meet the GPU, or Graphics Processing Unit. Okay, for all you gamers out there, or anyone who wants to edit video or do 3D work, this is the powerhouse. It's basically a computer in itself, designed for one specific job, rendering every single pixel you see on your screen, from your desktop wallpaper to the most insane, graphically demanding game worlds. So installing the GPU, guess what? It's another one of those super satisfying click-in parts. First, you just pop out those little metal covers on the back of the case. Then you open the retaining clip on the topmost long slot on your motherboard. You always want to use that top slot for the best performance. Then you just line up the card and push down firmly until you hear that solid click. A couple of screws to hold it in place, and then of course, plug in the power cables from the PSU. And with all the big pieces in place, we get to the final and I think kind of satisfying step, cable management. Now, this isn't just about making your PC look pretty on the inside. Tucking away all these cables and tying them down with zip ties actually improves airflow inside the case, and better airflow means all your powerful components stay cooler and run better. So, the tools are down. Every single component is locked in. Every cable is plugged in where it's supposed to be. All that focus, all that hard work, it has all led up to this one, single, heart-pounding moment. And that leads to the one question on every single builder's mind. Will it post? POST stands for Power on Self-Test. It's the very first check the computer does to make sure the brain, the memory, and the graphics card are all there and talking to each other. It's the first sign of life. And there it is. Yes, success! This screen, this beautiful screen full of text, this is the signal we have been waiting for. This is the BIOS, and seeing it means the CPU, the RAM, and the GPU are all installed correctly, and they're all working together. The hardware build is officially a success. From a stack of boxes to a fully functioning computer, the builder's journey is complete. You've just seen that this whole process, it isn't magic. It's methodical, it's totally accessible, and honestly, it's incredibly rewarding. And now that you've seen how it's done, the only question left is, what will you build? And what amazing things will you create with it?